What are some of the common walls agencies run into during zero trust implementation? And how do they break through? After the break, insight from Palo Alto and a roadmap for gaining security without more complexity. I'll be right back.
The recent executive order and OMB strategy have federal agencies moving toward a zero-trust cybersecurity model fast. Palo Alto Networks, trusted partner to federal agencies, has the technology and experience to guide your agency's zero-trust journey. Our enterprise and cloud offerings can protect the government's mission in civilian and defense operating environments while supporting your agency's zero-trust strategy and implementation. Learn more at paloaltonetworks.com/industry/federal.
Welcome back to Zero Trust as a Federal Priority. I'm George Jackson with GovExec TV. Here now, Drew Epperson, Senior Director of Federal Engineering and Chief Architect for Palo Alto Networks. Drew, great to see you, sir. How are you?
Doing well. How are you, George?
I'm doing well. Well, following these conversations, it's clear to me adopting zero trust as an operating philosophy and technical system decreases the risk of data breaches, other cyber attacks, particularly as the perimeter dissolves more permanently. The general trend is shifting to models of zero trust overall. Fill in the blanks for me here, Drew. For those agencies not yet adopting a zero trust approach, what's holding them back?
Yeah, George, I think most customers are. Most of the agencies, especially with the new presidential mandates and OMB guidance, everyone's somewhere on that journey. I think, for me, there are kind of three things that I've noticed over this period of new guidance and some new focus specifically on zero trust. One is, I think a lot of organizations are trying to decide where to start. It's not a one size fits all. Where some organizations need to start or where they have existing investments may differ. So I think step one is, where do we start? What focus areas do we want to drive? Where are we further along in the maturity model? The second one that usually comes out in these conversations is, what technology do we have that are existing investments that we can use and reuse? And then where are some areas specific to zero trust that we need some additional investment? And usually that takes a little bit of time to do a rationalization, kind of analysis, decide what you have, what you're using, what's working, what you can reuse, where you can just redeploy or reconfigure, and then what are net new investment areas that you really need to drive to get after the intent of zero trust. And then I think the third thing that sticks out to me as people start on this journey is, where do they have program and funding alignment? New budget was just passed, which is really helpful for a lot of the people inside of the federal government, obviously. But I think there are some programs like TMF, for instance, where organizations made strategic decisions to say, we may need a plus up in a specific area to really drive the intent behind zero trust. And so we've worked with a lot of our partners and customers to say, if you decide that you want to start in an area that requires new investment, what is that investment program and vehicle that can help you get there quicker? And so, I think those three things, really stick out to me as the reasons people haven't maybe got further along in their journey. But, my experience has been that most agencies are somewhere on that journey today. And I think, there's a little bit of a misconception that people haven't already been working on this, for years. A lot of agencies that we work with are further along in this journey than I think, sometimes we give them credit for. People have been working on the base tenets of zero trust under just the guides of better cybersecurity for a while. And so, deciding where to start, figuring out what you can use, reuse, where you need investment, and figuring out ways to programize or add funding for those investments. Those three key areas, I think, are huge enablers and quickly accelerating the adoption on zero trust.
Drew, this might be a naive question, but is zero trust easy to adopt?
Easy. Yeah, easy is tricky. That's a tricky question. Cybersecurity in general, I don't think is easy. And I think everyone would agree with that. Like it is a very complex, nuanced topic. And a lot of times, like I said, just a second ago, it's not the same for everybody. And so, we get a lot of feedback from people that we're working with. We do a lot of education on the Palo Alto Network side about what really is zero trust, not defined by us, not our weird view of what zero trust is, but alignment with NIST and the NSTAC report, CISA guidance, OMB guidance, the presidential executive order. And I think a lot of what we initially hear from people is This, zero trust, we've just always believed it's hard. And to your point, is it easy to adopt? I think in some ways, I personally think it helps. And what I mean by that is if we all just sat around and said the goal is to create better cybersecurity, there's not really a barometer of what better looks like. But when we say we all need to move to a zero trust model, here are the tenets of zero trust. Here are the requirements and kind of a phase milestone approach. Everyone at least has a common theme and a common expectation on what we're trying to achieve. I think the second part of your question, though, is interesting in the adopt. I think what we're trying to work and instill in a lot of these conversations is that it is not a one-time adoption. It is a fundamental change in how we design, implement, and maintain cybersecurity postures. And so to your point about is it easy to adopt, I think I would challenge that a little bit and just say, it's easy to rally around, but the adoption of it likely will take us some time as an industry.
Drew, we just heard from Jamie Noble at the Department of Justice, the Office of Justice Programs. She shared that one common challenge she thinks people who aren't as far along as her agency in addressing zero trust that they should address early on is getting the business owners of the organization really involved from the outset. The CFO, the other folks in the C-suite. What are some common challenges or advice that you would give to folks who are looking to really excel in zero trust?
Yeah, I think there's two areas that stick out to me, George. One is absolutely in alignment with that. What we've seen a lot of success around is building milestones in the onset of the project to say, what are the things we're going to do first, second, and third? Creating measurable objectives so that you can quantify how far you've made it down that journey. And then, in conjunction with that, what we always suggest is building an internal community of interest, which is exactly what you were just talking about. Finding stakeholders who can be enablers, who, if things don't go as well as planned, might even be blockers in some cases, and bringing them along in the journey to say, your feedback is valuable. The business that you represent is obviously the intent. We're trying to protect the overall business and agency mission, and then making sure that they have a voice in that process as well. The second area that I think, a little bit of a pet peeve of mine is zero trust has become really, really noisy, just generally. You and I were, before we started filming, we're talking about RSA. I can only imagine all of the zero trust messaging that's going to be at RSA. But, from an industry side, we've spent at Palo Alto Networks a ton of time working with groups like NIST and NSTAC, CISA, DHS, DISA, and NSA, working through industry guidance, best practices, working groups, building communities of interest. A little frustrating to see, over the last year or so that on the industry side, zero trust has been somewhat co-opted as just a selling campaign. And we've seen, both companies and leaders of those companies just put out these kind of weird yardages to say, you can't be zero trust if you're this, or in order to be zero trust, you have to be this, or unless the product says zero trust, it's not really zero trust. And I think, the guidance I would give to federal organizations and agencies is just ignore the noise. Look for partners, key partners who are trusted in the industry, that work inside of working groups, belong to communities of interest, focus on industry best practices, standards, and move toward those type of individuals, because it will truly be a partnership required to be successful. And if you're not finding those type of people, I would say that likely the journey on zero trust will be a really painful journey.
Drew Epperson, Senior Director of Federal Engineering and Chief Architect for Palo Alto Networks. Drew, great to see you.
You as well. Thanks, George.